Dream state reality. The idea that reality is not as physically solid as presented. We've all heard the mass and speed and time and properties of physics, but who's to say it's not as set in stone as presented? If I walked up to you and said, "Hey man, you're dreaming," you'd probably answer, "I'll be awake another 5 hours before sleep. I work in the morning." What if your phone alarm went off, you opened your eyes and you realized it was time for work? I think that's how dream state reality functions. We don't realize it, mainly because our entire lives we've been directed, coached, taught, and repeated physics, physics, physics. It has to be. So we disregarded the possibility that there could be more to reality. In the late 1960s, I was a young boy. I considered myself pretty aware. I was healthy and active and very aware. And one day, the Smokey the Bear character had his name changed to Smokey Bear. I had seen Smokey the Bear on TV in commercials maybe 5 times a week for a couple of years. They were pushing it. Smokey the Bear says, "Only you can prevent forest fires." Over and over. And he held his shovel and it was repeated over and over. But one day it changed to Smokey Bear says, "Only you can prevent wildfires." So he lost the in Smokey the Bear and forest changed to wild. And on top of that, he lost his shirt. Smokey the Bear no longer wears a shirt. I brushed it off. Life went on. Many years later, it was 1999, I noticed the Lord's Prayer had changed. I was reading the Bible at that time. Of course, it caused me to pause and consider what's going on. But since it was pounded into me that things don't change, it's reality, it's a hardcore physics, I let it go. Because, I'm a creature of the system and that's what I was told and it couldn't have changed. In 2018, I was driving my car down a ramp onto a freeway. A car in the slow lane just jerked over right in front of me, thinking that there was nobody behind them and that they would just slowly enter the freeway. And for that instant, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to plow into the back of this guy. There's just no way to avoid it. So I slammed my brakes, knowing that I'd be hitting them probably 15 to 20 miles an hour. It's going to be a pretty good crunch. A few seconds later, there was 6 feet of distance between us and no impact. And I thought that was going to happen. I know it was going to happen, but it didn't. Going ahead a few years to 2019, I discovered Mandela effect. And there was a video with, I think it was the top 100 examples. And I went through there and I recognized maybe 90 of the 100 seemed to have changed. And this expanded my awareness to, okay, perhaps it isn't that solid. And being the investigative tiger I am, I went immediately into looking for anybody and everybody's ideas to what's going on. Everything from God to CERN to afterlife to there's just a bunch of ideas. They all hold up pretty well, but they just can't stand up to every test. Particularly the changes in the Bible destroy a lot of those theories. The Bible is just so weird right now. It just is, for example, corn. There's over 180 mentions of corn in the Bible. And I know that 30 years ago when I read the Bible cover to cover, it was grain and wheat. I know. And I never heard mention of the story of new wine and old wineskins being bottles. And in many versions of the Bible, it's now, you do not pour new wine into old bottles, for they shall burst. And there's just many, many examples in the Bible of changes that could not simply be a slightly different alternate reality or timeline. It just doesn't add up. So that's what brings me to dream state reality. That seems to cover pretty much anything. Like if I look at the Bible the way it is now, I look at it thinking maybe in a dream, but there's just no way. There's no way the Bible's like that in any dimension at all. It couldn't be. And I have another example. In 2014 or 2015, I attended a meeting at work. And it was a pretty hardcore meeting. There was a director there, and he kept handing out these sheets of, okay, this sheet is information of the layout of the walkways. This is information of the construction activity coming ahead. This is a safety sheet for you all. And he kept handing out these pages over about like an hour and 10 minutes. I must have had 8 of them, 8 or 9 of them. And it was a lot of paperwork. So the meeting was adjourned, and I left. The parking garage was about a block and a half away. So I'm walking up the sidewalk, and I have like 9 sheets of paper in my hands. And in my head, I'm thinking, I could use a paperclip right now. I took a few steps, and in front of me, somebody had created a small teepee of about 7 or 8 paper clips on the sidewalk. This little pointed structure, and I reached down and I took one and I knocked the teepee down, but I'm like, okay, well, I have my paper clip. I put it on the paper and I started walking again. I'm thinking, that is just pretty weird. I mean, that it instantly was there. And then I thought, let's see if I can do it one more time. So I thought, where's a rubber band? Show me a rubber band. So I crossed the street, entered the parking garage, and there on one of the stop blocks that you see at the front of parking spaces that stop the front wheels, there was a brand new blue, wide, broccoli type rubber band sitting on the block. So I picked it up, stretched it. It wasn't even weather damage. It was like brand new. So this brings me to today, where we see and realize and observe things that are just too weird to be reality. And I think any of us can list 20 easily. This whole red versus blue thing, the disease thing, crazy children carried to islands thing, religious issues. It's just beyond something that can happen in a normal awake state. But there's good news. If we are in a partial dream state, say 5% of our what we call awake reality is flexible, things can be as easily made better as worse. And what comes to mind, in my mind, is, you know, when Bruce Lee put up his defense, he had his forearm diagonal like across his neck. And just looking at him, his eyes and that forearm, you knew that anything that you were going to throw at him was going to be deflected. It wasn't even a question. And I think that's how this reality works. And maybe the way it's always worked is that, yes, there's so much weirdness and negativity and bad stuff coming in our direction. If we're aware that reality is flexible and a partial dream state, we can deflect these. I think that's a big plus. We don't have to take them straight on and block them and kick them, but we can deflect them. I heard a bit of wisdom about 25 years ago. It was from the company president where I worked. He was talking to the workers about the progress in the company, earnings, and things like this. And he said, we are where we want to be. And it's true. It's true. For example, if we're walking down a sidewalk and we notice that to our right, a building's caught on fire, and we cross the street to the other side, true, We don't want to be anywhere near fire or near all the chaos that's going to come with the fire engines. But in that micro environment, we are where we want to be. We don't want to be on the sidewalk next to the fire. We want to be across the street. And I think that's how this whole system works. This morning, I listened to Cam on Autodidac, and he advised his listeners to find a positive goal. Sure, there'll be chaos, confusion, issues, attempted blockages. Make that your purpose in life, your positive goal. Have a good week, everyone.